Welcome to the Board of Hillsborough County Commissioners Land Use Workshop. This is a totally virtual workshop, and we invite you to watch along with us, but we'll start with a roll call vote.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kemp?
Here.
Cullen?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Myers?
Here.
Overman?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
White?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll begin today, and actually we'll just turn the show over to Melissa Zernita, the Planning Commission Executive Director.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kemp. And
We're having a little trouble with your volume.
okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for having this workshop this afternoon. We've got 3 topics ahead on the agenda. The first that I'll introduce is a presentation on a unincorporated county survey to do some outreach on growth issues. This was something that was directed by the Board of County Commissioners in early 2020 in a series of workshops that you all had. You wanted to hear more directly on public sentiment on growth and infrastructure issues from unincorporated county residents.
Is it possible to be a little bit louder? I don't know if others are having trouble, but.
So, Ms. Zornita, at the bottom of your screen, where your mute button is, there's a little down arrow.
Yes.
Go ahead and click that for me.
Yeah.
Click on settings.
Mm-hmm.
And then where it says microphone, that input volume, that scroll bar, bring it to about 75%.
Is that better?
Keep going.
Okay. Is that better?
Getting a little bit better there. So just keep going for me.
Well, that's the top. I'm not sure.
That sounds much better.
Yes, all of a sudden we got much better.
Okay.
You don't have to repeat. We could hear what you said. It's just.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you letting me know that there was a problem. So today we have the results of the outreach efforts. Robert Allen with HCP Associates will be making the presentation as they conducted the survey. So with that, I will turn it over to Robert.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you today. Again, as Melissa said, I'm Robert Allen at HCP Associates. We've called this project a Sustainable Growth Study, and I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So in very late 2019, early 2020, the BOCC and the Planning Commission reached out to us seeking statistically valid feedback on growth and development within unincorporated Hillsborough County. Because of some issues with the pandemic, data collection was delayed until late 2020. Ultimately, the goal was to hear from a wide sample and a representative sample of unincorporated Hillsborough County. However, before doing that, we conducted some stakeholder interviews to hear firsthand from parties that were directly affected by and involved with growth and development issues in the county. That stakeholder interview component was not statistically significant, but that preliminary feedback was instrumental in designing our survey questionnaire for our statistically significant findings. So I'll briefly review that. Our stakeholder interview methodology was a series of individual telephone interviews with 38 different stakeholders. This was really a substitution for focus groups, which were not tenable during the COVID time. The stakeholders were divided into 3 rough groupings: infill residents, rural stakeholders, and developers. Ultimately, we spoke to a lot of different people and organizations, things like Mosaic, some agricultural representation, some environmental organizations, and many others. Overall, these took about 45 minutes in length, and the topics discussed varied based on the stakeholder. We conducted this from November 17th of last year through February 21st of this year. Following the conclusion of all that stakeholder feedback, we created a survey and deployed it to 1,300 residents of unincorporated Hillsborough County. This was an exclusively telephonic survey. However, it leveraged both landlines and cell phones. The average length of the survey was approximately 11 minutes, which is right in line with that 10-minute sweet spot that you want for a phone survey. The survey was in the field from the end of January through the beginning of March of this year, and the margin of error was about 2.7%. One of the most important things with the methodology such as this was that we wanted to make sure that we had an extremely representative sample of the population of unincorporated Hillsborough County. So we controlled for the following variables: gender, age, race and ethnicity, education, location within unincorporated Hillsborough County, and crucially for this work, homeownership. So I'll move quickly through this slide, but this shows the sample demographics for our controlled variables. One thing you will see is that the weighted percentage matches exactly to the 2019 American Community Survey, which is the census percentages for unincorporated Hillsborough County. We were very pleased with these results. We also asked several other demographic questions that weren't controlled, but they were still used in our analysis in our full report. Things like housing type, of course, the predominant housing type being single-family homes, household income, with which we received a very healthy distribution of all income strata, and the presence of children in the household, which was about a 50-50 split. We divided the county into 3 regions: east, south, and west, largely using the Alafia River and the city of Tampa as the boundaries between these different regions. And we also asked residents about their tenure, again, getting a very healthy pyramid-like distribution. Ultimately, the telephonic survey results are split into, I would call, 2 major sections. These talk about the individual preferences and desires that residents have for their living situation. And then in the second half of this, we'll talk about more of their policy preferences and some feedback that they have for county policies. So we asked residents on a scale of 1 to 5 to rate the importance of several different community characteristics in terms of where they want to live. What we found was that residents prioritize characteristics related to family and community, as well as things like neighborhood amenities, over things involving transportation access. Now, they still valued things like conveniently being able to walk safely. So there is definitely a degree of connectivity that's important to residents. But when compared to things like commute times and access to public transportation, although there were still sizable chunks of unincorporated Hillsborough County that felt that those were very important, those numbers weren't quite as high as we saw for some of our family and community amenity questions. You'll note that 4 of these categories are marked with an asterisk. That's because we borrowed them from our friends at Pew Research. We wanted to get a sense of whether Hillsborough County had any divergent opinions on these issues compared to the national average. So we looked back at a 2018 study conducted by Pew, in which they surveyed people living in suburban areas across the United States. 4 of these categories were like in our study and in Pew's study. And what we found is that although Hillsborough County residents in unincorporated county have a higher demand for all of these things than the national average, the prioritization of them actually is identical to the national average. This is probably the most important slide in this presentation. It speaks to a concept in housing economics referred to as the housing trilemma. Generally, you can only have 2 of these 3 factors. You can have a prime location, a great price, or a great bang for your buck, or how much house you get. So if you want a very affordable house that's also very large, you typically have to go far away from the city center. If you don't care about affordability and you want to live right in the city center, you can have a prime location and a large home. So you can have any combination of 2, but you have to forego one of those things. So we asked residents in unincorporated Hillsborough County, which of these three characteristics is the least important? Emphasis on that word least. And overwhelmingly, they indicated that commute length was the least important. By deduction, we see that housing affordability was the most important characteristic for residents in unincorporated Hillsborough County. The only other point I'd mention here is, although there is only very little regional variation, we did note that South County does have the greatest emphasis on housing affordability. In our next question, we wanted to explore whether residents had a desire to relocate, in part because we wanted to see where their aspirations were for their future housing types. This was also a question that Pew explored in 2018. One thing we are happy to report is that across Hillsborough County, the desire to relocate is substantially less than the national average for suburban dwelling Americans. There was, however, some substantial regional variation, with the west part of unincorporated Hillsborough County having the least desire to move among the three regions. When somebody said that they did want to move, we asked them whether they wanted to move somewhere that was urban, rural, or suburban. Mind you, without defining what those definitions were. Unlike Pew, we saw a substantial variation from the national average as compared to these past two questions, where the majority of 51% of those that wanted to move expressing a desire to move somewhere that is more rural. So we asked them why. In general, they expressed a desire to have a more family-oriented lifestyle. This idea of having more land, being a little bit farther away from neighbors, and having kind of the picket fence for your dog and your kids approach was really the predominant reason why. In terms of secondary reasons, some expressed a general sense of there just being too many people around where they were, and others expressed a desire to actually become a homeowner as opposed to a renter. We wanted to talk about transportation because it's kind of inseparable from the housing situation. Your transportation costs, housing costs, they do tend to interrelate. So one question we asked unincorporated Hillsborough County residents was whether they would be willing to take public transit to work if it were just more available or convenient. What we found was that there was already 9% of our sample that said that they were already using public transit. Again, we didn't ask them how often or how much, but they said that they were. And another 15% said, well, if it was more available or convenient, I would take public transit to work. So that's about 24% of unincorporated Hillsborough County that we would call transportation willing. Another important characteristic we wanted to explore in this research was whether the pandemic had scared people away from mass transit entirely. So when we asked those that didn't have a desire to take public transit why that was the case, we were very relieved to see that only very small numbers of our sample expressed a hesitation that had to do with the pandemic or cleanliness or sanitation. And really, the reasons why not were just a factor of convenience or already having transportation. So now we're entering what I call the policy section of this presentation. So now we've kind of talked about our residents in unincorporated Hillsborough County. There's a little bit of a self-selection process that goes into choosing to live in unincorporated county. But as we saw, there was an emphasis on housing affordability, maybe a little bit of a de-emphasis on commute. They're more willing to drive a little bit further as long as they get to have a little bit of a bigger home. But we wanted to talk to them about some concepts, and I call this slide the sprawl slide, although we never use that word with our respondents. We asked them whether widespread development outside city centers, typically on previously undeveloped land, was an issue for Hillsborough County. And resoundingly, with 66% of our sample saying, yes, that is in fact an issue. We wanted to explore that a little bit further, so we asked them to provide some open-ended feedback as to why that was. Their first concern, which surprised me personally because I expected traffic to be number one, was just this notion of there's too much going on all at once, too much happening too fast. In a close second place, there was traffic, and not too far behind that, about 10% less, were concerns about the environment. We then had 3 questions that speak to kind of an agree or disagree on county policies. We asked residents whether they agree that Hillsborough County should discourage or limit new development to protect agricultural and environmental lands. And a very strong, resounding majority of 91% agreed that they should do that. We then asked about community identity, again, not defining that, but just allowing that phrase to stand on its own. And 71% of unincorporated Hillsborough County residents believe that the county should encourage each part of it to have its own community identity. Finally, we wanted to talk about infrastructure, and this question actually is going to lead into 2 more slides. But 65% of residents in unincorporated Hillsborough County believe that infrastructure has not kept up with growth over the past decade. My final point on this slide is that in the west region of Hillsborough County, there was a substantial amount of residents above that of the average that said that infrastructure had kept up. So there was a little bit more satisfaction with infrastructure in the west part of Hillsborough County. So we talked about infrastructure in the next 2 slides in 2 main ways. The first question we asked our respondents was, what is the single most important thing that hasn't kept up with population growth in terms of infrastructure? As you can see from this chart, it's pretty unambiguous. Unincorporated Hillsborough County residents were primarily concerned about roads. Schools and public transportation were tied for second place, but the difference is pretty striking in terms of their top of mind awareness. Knowing that we had a suspicion that roads might be the top of mind, so we wanted to find out a little bit more about some other infrastructure and service items that are of concern for the county. What we found is that only 3 had near majority or majority feeling that the infrastructure or service item had not kept up. And that's our roads with about 90%, our public transit and our sidewalks and bike lanes, each which are about 50-50. And then for all the other infrastructure and service items, police, fire, schools, sewer, water, etc., majorities actually felt that these things had kept up with growth. Even though we saw some concern in other questions early on in open-ended feedback about schools, the majority did not have that concern. The only other point I would make on this slide is that although there was only about 25% of unincorporated Hillsborough County residents that we called transportation willing or transportation, if you just make it a little better, about half said that it hadn't kept up. So there's clearly a sector of non-transportation willing residents that still believe that the infrastructure for public transportation is lacking. So just to wrap up, sometimes our residents' public policy preferences can be in conflict with their personal desires. They very much like the big homes. They don't mind a long commute, but at the same time, they broadly support efforts to limit development, especially to protect agricultural and environmental lands. They agree that widespread development is a challenge facing Hillsborough County. Even though those residents that say they want to move often say they want to move out somewhere that's more rural and more remote. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there. But residents feel that roads, public transit, sidewalks, and bike lanes are really the main infrastructure items that have not kept up with growth. Now, some of you may have mentioned some other items that you all know as county staff that haven't kept up either. But in terms of public perception, it's really on the roadways, transit, the sidewalk, and the bike lanes. Finally, residents in unincorporated Hillsborough County place a greater weight on housing affordability, more than any of the other characteristics, than things like housing size and commute times. Okay. That concludes my presentation. If you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Did you want to say something, Melissa? No. Thank you very much. And I'm seeing Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. It's excellent analysis, and I do appreciate that it shows in the work that you did the differences in response or expectations of the various different areas. That's very helpful, and there is some disparities in how we've actually grown at the rate of growth, and how we've restricted or expanded growth. So it just kind of points out the angst that some of our folks in the South and the East, are feeling in terms of how we've grown, but also that they were actually interested in a more rural sort of setting. So it seems to conflict with each other, as you pointed out, but it is interesting that that's where they're going. The one thing I did observe, though, when it talked about commuting and times travel, I noticed, and I can't remember where I saw it, it may be in the demographics, but the age of the respondents tended to be more in the senior or retiree age. And that would absolutely impact the outcome when asking about the least important length of my commute to work response. So did you carve out the retirees for that response, or were they included in the data set?
In general, this data set that we all just looked at is for the entire population of unincorporated Hillsborough County. We did regressions on pretty much all of the demographic variables we showed at the beginning of that, and highlighted that in our full reporting. Obviously, to your point, if someone's retired, then they're certainly not worried about their commute to work. However, there's only about 20% of our sample that were of 65 years and older, and not even including how many of that is retired. So for still to have that 60+% saying that commute time is the least important characteristic would suggest that it's not just being driven by the retirees, although it certainly may be amplified by them.
Yeah, I would assume so, because in your sample, you also have 50%, actually 52% of the respondents have children in their homes. So that would suggest that having a bigger home is somewhat necessary. But I did wonder about the sort of conflict there. One other question that you may not have elaborated in the report, but you're over 60% of the respondees indicated they lived in a single family home.
That's correct.
Can you share with me what percent of that 6%, what the breakdown was by either race or income?
You're right. That is not in our full report, but I can absolutely produce that figure for you.
That would really be great, because we do know there's a disparity between home ownership across our cultural populations. And it would be very helpful, for example, given the agricultural community in the east part of the county is very different than the agricultural community in, say, the northwest part of the county. I would really love to see how that breaks down in respondents, because I sense a disparity, but I'm not able to see it in this illustration. So that would be very helpful. I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we did see in our desire to move reasons that there were, I believe it was 13%, so a sizable chunk that had expressed that the reason they really wanted to move was to be able to afford a home. So there's definitely some home ownership desire that we see in some of our numbers. So I'll circle back with our team and we'll provide something to you with more detail.
Yeah, it's very clear. We have a lot of people who, where housing affordability is a real crisis level. And when you have to buy 2 cars because there's an adequate transit option to elect, not that they may or may not actually use it all the time, but at least they can't. It's not an option because we haven't invested in it, and there's a deficit there, which is explained in your answers. Where you addressed that the population still believes that there's a deficit in those three top categories, and one of them happens to be our investment in transit. So I appreciate this report. Again, it seems to, my initial responses, it seemed to indicate that people were not interested in, utilizing or investing in transit. And that is actually not true.
Yeah, I don't think it reads that way. I think it shows that obviously your ridership interest is going to be strongest in your more urban areas. But even among unincorporated Hillsborough County, there's that 50% that believe that the infrastructure hasn't kept up over time.
Right. And so if it were more available, would they write it, answer on slide 13?
Right.
If they've already had to buy 2 cars, obviously they're not going to elect for that. And where our transit only shows up once an hour, that's also going to make it an adverse choice. So it basically, the answer is no, because it's not a workable solution for folks that want to live in a more suburban or rural area. Is that accurate, or your take on this?
I think that's a reasonable take. We only had about 25% of the sample that said that they would take public transit even if it were boosted up. And when we asked them why not, most people indicated that they already had a car. We even saw some open-ended responses saying, well, my girlfriend takes me to work and she has a car. I think that there's probably a lot more to be dug into on the question of people's willingness to ride transit. I think it's a multifaceted issue. It goes back several decades. It's not just a current reaction to economic circumstances. But in terms of what these results say, I think it's pretty unambiguous that there's a degree to which they think that transit infrastructure hasn't kept up over time.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know Commissioner Smith wants also to be recognized in a minute, but just to go off that, I think it is, in my mind, when you have with the paucity, the absolute paucity of transit, especially to most of that southeast part of unincorporated county, because we are the most underfunded transit system in the nation, not by a little bit, by a long shot, for a metro area our size, hugely underfunded. The fact that 9% said that they were using it kind of took me back. That's a very high figure. That 15% more said that they would use it if, appropriate. That's 24%. I think that probably surpasses the transit use in a lot of high transit use areas in America. And if we could get that kind of transit ridership in unincorporated county, would be a stunning. That's very huge. And then we add that to 14% at home. We're at 38% of the population with transit or at home, there. So I think that I just wanted to, go off that. The other thing I thought was, while roads was emphasized here at the 90%, and as I said to you before, when you give, someone and you say, do you want to breathe, drink, or eat? You only get one choice. And I know you do that as a technique, but then when you're looking also at you look at the top 3 choices, as you pointed out, roads, that's what everybody knows or uses. And that's, by the way, what transit uses for the most part too. But then you have, when public transit gets 52% in an unincorporated, Hillsborough survey, as a priority, that's incredibly high amount of support, as well as sidewalks and bikes at 54% is, again, just emphasizing, I think, I think it's rather stunning results. And the thing that struck me so much about this was and I wasn't surprised by this answer, but I think it is I just, I know other places might answer like this, but probably not. 91% of people in unincorporated Hillsborough County want to limit new development. It's coming too fast. They don't even know how to describe it. They don't describe it in traffic. They just describe it as being too much happening, as you said you had, because it's all just being put down. They don't even know about the traffic impacts yet, which are going to hit them even harder. And even with that 23% say traffic. So, I think this does tell us a lot about what's going on there, and maybe portends what's to come. And I don't know, people, it's like some imaginary thing, well, I want to have rural, I want to be alone, I don't want anybody around. And but it's the things that don't even exist out there for a majority of people that might want it in any reasonable way. Then everybody moves there, and then there's packed with traffic and confusion and too much development. So it's it's a choice that can't be reasonably made, but except in our minds maybe. But Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I don't want to spend too much on this because I know we have the other comp plan amendment workshops to get to. I think there's been excellent points made by both Commissioner Overman and Commissioner Kemp that I agree with wholeheartedly. So I just want to make the point that the interview sample, we're interviewing people in the whole unincorporated area outside the cities, mostly pretty far outside the cities. So we're interviewing people who have already made the choice to trade a long commute for a less expensive, larger home. And so it's not surprising that the survey shows that half of them value housing costs or housing size over the commute. I know that we're all hearing, though, from people who made that choice, bought that home when they made that trade-off and as you say, it might be third on the wish list of housing size and price, but that doesn't mean it doesn't matter what their commute length is. It just means if you ask them, would you sacrifice water as long as you can still breathe? They would maybe do that. So yes. So they've opted for that, but they, so many of them have lived here a while. They might have opted for a 30-minute commute, and now, like me, that commute has turned into over an hour, and in a very short period of time. And so I think we just need to understand the context of these figures as we're looking at them. And it's a good point that 20% of the respondees are over 65. So, they're not commuting. And there's was quite a high percentage of people working from home. So they don't care about the commute or the transit, but yet, almost 25% would either currently use or would use transit in this area is astounding. I think there's 90% want us to limit new development, 90% or 60% identify roads and as a problem, and that is probably mostly in the South and East, more in the South and East than in the West, as the Western half is more satisfied with their infrastructure. So
we really saw the West region having a greater sense of satisfaction across all the infrastructure items. Mm-hmm. That was a true statement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't see any other questions, so I think.
Madam.
Yes.
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
I'd like to speak.
Sure.
Okay. Do I have the floor?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's preposterous to try to spin this data in such a way as to say that it's an argument in favor of transit. I see the data as clearly stating that the people of unincorporated Hillsborough County want attention given to roads. They want added capacity to the roads. They want the roads resurfaced. Yes, they want sidewalks and bicycles because people in suburban Hillsborough County are riding their bicycles for recreation in the evenings and on the weekends. They have kids walking to schools and whatnot. But the bottom line is the data, in my mind, just shows that there's just not a high level of willingness to take public transit, and it's preposterous to have a spending plan where 45% would be skimmed right off the top to heart. I say that the city of Tampa's portion a significant portion of their share should go to heart. A much smaller portion of Hillsborough County's amount should go to heart, and we shouldn't have all these buckets, if you will, these spending restrictions. The only reason that previous referendum passed is because the citizens of suburban and rural Hillsborough County were fooled by this special interest group that had put this on the ballot and sent out all kinds of misleading mailers and communication on it. And I read the data as saying that, yes, the people want better growth management. That's why I've worked so hard on growth management. We've got to stop packing people into the outskirts of the county on 40-foot lots. You know, we have to have growth management plans that allow people to have that larger piece of land that they want in the outskirts. We have to give them the road capacity and the well-maintained roads that they're asking for. And I'm telling you, if we end up with a spending plan that looks anything like the old All for Transportation spending plan, I will fight tooth and nail to let every citizen in unincorporated Hillsborough County know just how flawed that plan is with respect to their needs.
Okay, I don't see any more comments at this time. And so I think we can move to the next item.
Thank you, commissioners.
So next, we have, we'll move to the comprehensive plan amendments. This will give an update on the RP2 and then subsequent to that, the Waimama studies that we've been doing. At the outset, I just wanted to thank you all for giving us some additional time to meet with the residents in both of these areas in person. The additional time, the cooperation of the Parks Department and the county facilities has just been tremendous to make it possible for us to have much more meaningful conversations with the community. And with those comments, I'll turn it over to Jared Schneider with the consultant team to walk you through some of the updates we're looking at for the RP2 project. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, commissioners, for your time today. Really appreciate it. So moving into it, really today what we're going to do is give you a recap of the study purpose and the reflections from when we last spoke, and talk to you a little bit about those trade-offs and the policy changes that we've come up with since January. As you all know, the pink area is where the moratorium occurred in the BOM area. And then this purple dash line is what's from the BOM community plan. And then also RP2 is considered this yellow area, which we're framing up as the North Village plan area. And moving forward, what we're really talking about is the comprehensive plan amendment for residential plan 2 and the corresponding land development code for the planned villages for RP2. Our focus has really been trying to simplify and clarify. And it's all about these trade-offs. There's 5 main ones that we've kind of identified here, and there's that seesaw, if you will, and some of that was really addressed well in the previous conversation we just had, but it's the population growth and the balance between infrastructure, and we keep hearing that. Maintaining that rural character, which we've heard a lot about, right? And then the clustering for efficient development. What does that look like? And that, the pull between those two competing interests, and the desire for larger lots or continuous open space. And then we've started through this process getting into the community benefits, and it's the balance of what's feasible for a community benefit. And then also for BOM specifically, we're looking at the larger 160-acre properties, and there's not many of those left out there. So what entitlements for small property owners, that balance between large and small. So you'll see these are common themes throughout the presentation that we'll walk through. One of the things really quickly we wanted to address, there's some things we're not talking about, like the environmentally sensitive land credit in this study, or policies for smaller properties that aren't aggregating. In the North Village area, you have to aggregate to 50 acres. In Balm Village, it's 160 acres. And then there's the broader infrastructure concerns outside of the RP2 study area. So we want to touch on our community meetings that we had. Melissa did a great job, and really appreciate Planning Commission and county staff. This is something that we couldn't do last year with COVID, and obviously COVID's still going, and we had to balance this, but we had really a number of different types of meetings. And what I was really pleased to see is we had a wide range of participants in the room to hear different perspectives. So we started with April 1st open house meeting, just to kind of debrief on what we heard in February. And that was also hybrid. So all these meetings were hybrid, where there was a virtual component as well. And then we had some topic meetings that got really, really specific. There were 4 of those, as well as another general session meeting that occurred on May 22nd. So we're going to walk through a little bit more detail on these, but again, I really thought having the different perspectives from those that live in the area, landowners, the BOM Civic Association, developers, and land use attorneys all talking together, that was really positive. Also, the fact that they're on different days and times, some were on Saturday morning, some during the weekend or weekdays in the evening. So this we call kind of our reflections from these meetings, and we'll unpack this a little bit further, but obviously, again, a lot of similarities from the previous presentation. The concerns we heard, the compatibility, that rural character, and Commissioner Kemp hit on that pretty well. Folks want to have that character, and then the need for better infrastructure, and the idea of predictability with development in the future. The middle section, what we're hitting on, what was interesting were these points of agreement between the different groups that we talked to. It's maintaining that rural, there we go, maintaining the rural character, and the varying home types came up again. Having commercial areas and targeted locations came up, and then dark sky and lighting was one as well. And so policy focus, that box on the right, we're going to focus on some 3 main items throughout this presentation. There's the development pattern, open space, and community benefits. And more and more, as we started to get into these detailed discussions, it was more of what is the look and the feel, and that's what we focused on. This slide gets into more perspective or more specifics, and you can see some of our work there on the right. And again, some similar themes. We got into the density and development pattern of those half-acre or larger lots, and really not liking the cookie cutter, the 40-foot lots, as Commissioner White hit on, the preference for larger lots over contiguous open space. That was interesting to have that conversation. And then, again, we hit on infrastructure and folks really wanting to look at dark sky communities. Moving into the next one, really, there was agreement on clustering criteria, or removing the clustering criteria rather, in favor of a specific pattern. Again, what's the look and the feel on the outside of the development? Removing those 40-foot lots to 50-foot lots was something that we had a lot of conversations on, and really talking about the perimeter and the buffering was a big deal. we started to really drill down in our latest meeting and get into some specifics. So you can see a really rough sketch there on the right. But what I thought this did a good job of is we were really talking about specifically the perimeter buffering. So really focused on, today you have 250-foot buffers, but it's more about the screening, the landscaping that blocks the development, not as much of the lots inside of the development. Now, some still feel those should be half-acre lots, but where we have agreement is really the lots on the perimeter buffers or having larger lots on the outside. So we've talked a little bit about lot mix, driving for simplicity and flexibility, and then also the community benefits. We talked about having a tiered system, and infrastructure is still a concern. So now we're going to transition from what we heard and what we've changed in the policies. And one of the things that we've really changed is this open space percentage from January. And I'll note today in the existing policies, there is not an open space percentage. It's all based on the clustering. So we started to really focus more again on what's the, almost like a form base, what's the outside of the development look like. If you do the buffering and the screening, or if you're not going to do that, then you do the larger perimeter lots on the perimeter, and it's more of that character on the outside versus dictating a percentage. And then this gets into some of the other kind of proposed feedback, and open space on the perimeter was, again, we tried to focus it more on there's a set percentage internal to the site. What we heard from the community was having more active uses than a large passive open space that it can't be utilized. So it's not a 40 to 2.5, really. It's not this number with the buffering and the screening. That's our focus, instead of saying is it a set percentage. This is something we're still working on, but we had a much more complex housing type table, and then we've moved to something what we heard is a little bit more simplified and having a lot mix of having two different lot types, a smaller and a larger. So we're still working on this. I think we may want to have more than two. We've also looked at some of the other standards around the county, like in Ruskin. So again, we're trying to encourage those larger lots and then have the smaller lots in the interior. So that's kind of specified in this table. Community benefits, the change here is really going to more of a simplified tiering system. We heard that it was too complex. So this is matching more of what we have in the WVR2. So you have to have, the developer would have to do 3 community benefits for anything from 50 to 100, or 4 for 100 to 165 for over 160. And there's different standards for if you're the north or the south area. We received further feedback that, let me go back. There's a requirement for schools that this will be a community benefit option, but it can't be a requirement. So this is a little bit repetitive. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of the changes in the code so you could see where we were in January and June. Again, with the open space, what we're striving to do is to touch on that buffering and screening, and then have a set percentage in the interior of the site. So that's what this is talking about. And then similarly, this gets into the community benefits. Again, if you're in the north area, that's where you have to aggregate to 50. So that's where these different tiers come into play. If you're in the BOM area, you have to do 5 or more is what we've put together at this point, community benefits. So transitioning to kind of the recommendations from our feedback, really what we're looking at is with any kind of rezonings, the BOCC having a compatibility evaluation with community input. We've talked to the community about having a site plan checklist that hits some of these 3 main themes that we're talking about of buffering, open space, and that, the mix. And the county should also consider, a lot of the similar conversations we've just been having, a mobility plan for BOM to address the community infrastructure concerns. This slide is really touching on issues we feel still need to be addressed and we'll be working through. That relationship between the open space and the larger perimeter lots. How many types do we go with and what does that look like? I think we have agreement on having buffers and screening and more landscaping, but yeah, the larger perimeter lots, what does that look like? And then also in the community benefit options, which ones should be required based on planning principles and priorities. So we're going to be talking to the community next week in an open house about that even further, and just getting more input on what is actually a benefit, what would be beneficial to the community and those coming into the area. And then that compatibility piece is also something that we're looking at different policies to ensure that there's that rural character in the compatibility. And lastly, alternative metrics for timing. And that's to kind of make sure that whatever benefits are going to be provided match up with timing. So now just to kind of finish this off with the schedule, as I mentioned, we're going next week to an open house really to dive in and provide more on the updates that we just provided and get feedback specifically on the community benefits and the neighborhood design elements. And then we're moving into public hearings in July and transmittal in August. And as you all know, the moratorium ends in December 31st. So with that, we'll open up for questions and appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And I'm looking here. I don't see anyone with their hand up at this time. Is that Commissioner Smith? You're recognized. Commissioner Smith, if you're talking.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
First of all, I see we have to still work on, well, first of all, let me say, I'm glad that we are able to have community meetings now. I think it's important not only that the community speaks to the staff and planners in surveys and in Zoom situations, but that they're able to hear each other. I am still concerned that this idea of that I keep hearing throughout this of balance and trade-offs is is suggesting that we're balancing the needs and desires of the Balm community for what is going to be left with them for as legacy for their generations hence, equally with a very few developers and their land use attorneys who are going to be developing the last remaining properties and leaving. So when we talk about balance and we talk about trade-offs, I really hope that the community understands that we're talking about community plan and those their needs and desires that they will be living with for the rest of their lives and their grandchildren's lives are the most important thing here to balance. I think it's gotten better about in certain respects. I think we've in several respects and but when we're talking about the community benefits, the other thing that I've learned the hard way working through community plans and requirements for them is that what you're going to get after this is set in stone. I'm sorry, you're going to end up getting the lowest common denominator. You're going to get the cheapest set, the easiest set of community benefits. So I don't want to lead the community to imagine or hope that they'll get the best set. If we allow for-profit developers to select from a list of community benefits, 2 from column A, 3 from column B, whatever it is, they're going to naturally pick the ones that are the cheapest and the easiest for them to do, especially at scale in a large development. So let's make sure that we're not leading the community to feel otherwise when they're looking at the list of community benefits, hoping that they'll get some of the best stuff when what they're going to get is the minimum that is allowed. And I just want to remind us that what we're talking about is outside the urban service area. It's outside the urban service area. So outside the urban service area, we do not supply, we're not providing urban services. Why? Because we can't afford to. Because the county, cannot afford to provide all the urban services we need for people inside the urban services area. We have areas inside the urban service area that are really suffering and need roads and water and sewer and schools and fire. And so the urban service area is our best tool for focusing our spending on urban services so we don't stretch out too far too thin and get in any worse shape than we are today. Now, outside the urban service area, anybody has the option to develop their land at 1 house per 5 acre. That's what it is outside the urban service area. And all these people here are free to do that at any time. Or they can ask for us to amend and modify our comprehensive plan and expand the urban service area boundary and come into the urban service area, and we can make that decision. And they can ask for that, and people do, and it gets granted or it doesn't get granted. So if they want urban density and urban services, that's the avenue. Expand the urban service area. Request that. But in this special area of RP2 and WVR2, outside the urban service area, people have a special option. Besides the 1 per 5 or the expanding in the urban service area, they can ask us for a rezoning to a higher density, 2 per acre. And that's what we're deciding here is, what should the requirements be in this special area of outside the urban service area to allow that? We don't need to do any trade-offs or anything. It's up to us to decide what we'll allow. And what it's always been, one of the things that have always been in here is they have to supply all the infrastructure themselves. It's always been. So we should not be trading that away at this point because we can't afford to. So in fact, we should be tightening that up, because the reason for the moratorium, and I've said this at every one of our workshops and meetings that I've had several with staff and in the community meetings, the reason for the moratorium was to try to address and tighten up the timing of growth with infrastructure in South County. That's the problem that our citizens were emailing us by the thousands about before COVID. That's why we put this moratorium in place, to try to address this at the comp plan, was how can we better provide, respond to these requests for 2 per acre density out here, and at the same time ensure that we are able to provide infrastructure, roads, schools, water, fire, and rescue safety. all of which are overloaded and at crisis points. So, I mean, it's great that we're revising the community plan to get things like the Dark Skies Initiative in Balm. That's awesome. And how, noodling over how big the buffers and the setbacks should be. Great. But that wasn't the prime reason for doing the moratorium. The prime reason has yet to be addressed, and it's listed on one of your slides about what's still to work out, and that is how to address the timing by which we grant these requests for the additional density in this special area where we're not bound to provide infrastructure, they are. And so we need to make that clear. And I think this is a great opportunity to make sure that we improve this. This is for improving our comp plan, not relaxing the regs or coming to a better trade-off for the stakeholders who want to develop. This is for improving our comp plan to ensure we can provide infrastructure at the same time with growth. And not only within this area, but throughout the area. If we are creating commuter subdivisions, we have people driving, adding traffic to all the roads between Balm and Waimama and Tampa, and ending up in Tampa causing traffic. If we allow too many people to hook up to water in Balm and Waimama, RP2 area, WVR2 area, we may well end up lowering the quality of service for everybody in that huge area south of the Alafaya River. So what we do in these little areas impacts the whole of our county budget for infrastructure, our South County people's traffic and water, and the rest of, fire rescue getting stretched too thin. So we've always had in this RP2, WVR2 area, the requirement that the developers must pay for their own infrastructure. For example, they must pay for the pipes and to hook up to water. That's supposed to be on them. But I think this is where we all realize we need to also ensure that we have water to put in those pipes without further lowering the quality of level of service for everybody in South Hillsborough. So this is an opportunity to address the concerns and the infrastructure issues we're facing and say, okay, yes, you have to pay for pipes, but also you have to realize that in this special area, particularly outside the urban service area, we're not bound to say we can give you water as long as you pay for the pipes. We have to look at how much water we have, when, and whether or not we can. And if we can't, you're going to have to wait until we can. And that, I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by not spelling that out here, so that everybody understands where we're at with all of this. I also wonder if, speaking about water, we have the urban service area where we're struggling to provide water. We have the rural area where people who do that 1 per 5, they're on well and septic. We don't have to hook them up to water. But if they're going to do this 2 per acre stuff, they're supposed to hook up to county water. And yet we know we're in this crisis point. We hook these people up outside the urban service area. They're jumping to the front of the line from areas we have inside the urban service area that we are not supplying sewer for if these people get on septic outside the urban service area. I mean, we have Gibsonton inside the urban service area, North Brandon, Harrowwood inside the urban service area that this county is not yet paying to provide sewage for. And yet whoever hooks up out here, whoops, they go to the front of the line and we're providing. we're paying to provide their sewer, and people inside Waimama Town Center and Ruskin Town Center are still struggling with that low pressure sewer system. So time is running out to address the main reasons that we provided this moratorium. Listen, providing a moratorium is a heavy lift. It's a chance of a lifetime. We can't do this a lot. We've never done it in my experience, well, except for a few times. But anyway, we need to make sure we're not squandering this opportunity, noodling with little design guidelines and things, and really get to the infrastructure problems we have in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I don't see any other hands up, but I have I think what we've learned and what is abundantly clear that y'all have shared, that they've shared at community meetings, that we've heard from over and over again in terms of the differences between Balm and Waimama is Balm, you know, isn't, they're very different in what they want. They want the more open space. They want the less development. They don't want the rural village thing that, you know, is the one form that is permitted if you want to go if you want to go from being 1 per 5 acres to something more dense, it's because you're developing a rural village. But we've never seen anyone offer to do anything like that. In fact, in Balm especially, that the way they were going to kind of judge that is by the commercial that was there within 2 miles. But again, so I'll say this. One, what I'd like to see, I'm just going to go through a list here and kind of flip this a bit on its head, because I just like don't see what I hear expressed and what I think we could do for this area. You know, we don't have much time. So I don't know whether, I mean, not in this workshop, but August 5th, I don't know whether I see this as the easier issue to address is Balm as compared to Waimama, but I don't know if we have the time while this moratorium exists to do what we need to do. But here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see, again, if there's a community benefit, for one, it should never be schools. We wanted to take the school property dedication out of the center of these developments as part of it. So I think that that should never even be part of the discussion that is presented to the community as a community benefit. It's not. To me, it's a developer benefit, and it doesn't really do what they've asked to do. And we've asked explicitly, or at least I have, publicly and many times, that this be stripped out of the whole package that's presented to us. That's what I understand the direction that both the schools and the school board and we are going to. So I especially dislike that being somehow included in this. Next, I want to get back from having what are commercial entitlements to having actual commercial in existence. And for it to be 2 miles as the road goes, not 2 miles as the crow flies. I'd like the community benefit to be, if there's a community benefit that could be had here, it would be to have the developers build some little commercial center and have it there. They obviously can't get the businesses to be in there, but allow the form and space to be there so that that could be the community benefit that the community could elect to have, and that would be at the developer's cost, and they could be doing it. Next, I think part of what's driving so much of the densities and small lots and all of that in this area that makes no sense to me at all is that we have a requirement that they put in sewer and wastewater. Definitely they need to do it at their expense. I think we should abolish that requirement, because what that does, we should just get rid of it. What that does is it forces, in order for them to pencil out that cost, they have to have, as I understand it, 4 units per an acre. So it drives the clustering, it drives the small lots, it does all that. I would like to see that, not saying that they won't build it, they need to pay for it if it's in there. It's outside the urban service line. But we should not be driving it through our regulations. I don't believe in either BOM or Waimama. That allows for open areas. That allows it not to dictate 4 per an acre units. I would like to repeal that requirement, that we require them to have sewer and wastewater in either BOM or Waimama. I think it's driving too much of the clustering and too much of the development that we shouldn't be doing. That is what I'd like to put out there on the table. The other is, we talked about, you said mobility plan. We want the county to talk about the mobility plan. And what does that mean? Because to me, again, if there's one benefit they could give is actually building a little center for neighborhood commercial, or for the community to use, or someone to start to occupy and do a commercial business, dedicate the land, and if it would be determined for a library or community center, if that's something that the county could support, or mobility, if we're talking about, I don't know what we're talking about when we say that. If we're talking about roads or trails, to me, that would be something that the developer actually should, that's a real community benefit. So why we're looking then later to the county about that, that's something that's real. Building a little neighborhood commercial place is something that's real. Those are something that could actually benefit, not requiring these sewer and wastewater is something that will allow them then to have the bigger lots, to develop it in that way. And then I think there should be some, talk with the community. I mean, we're talking about bigger lots to the outside on the roads, so that it looks like it's more rural, even if it's not. So, I mean, I would like to have the community talk about, well, maybe this could be the overlay. We want this part to be, and have them have a choice. Would you rather have this be open space that's set aside? Instead of a superficial, it just strikes me as not a real choice where, when we're saying the bigger lots on the outside so it looks better, but not, because typically the opposite is true in a development form that I've seen. Usually have towards the road the smaller, and then interior, maybe where there's a water features, it's called, or a pond or a lake, that are the larger. But I think that could be a discussion. I don't know if it has been had, but because these choices haven't even been presented. But I think it would, I think we have to flip this thing. And if they're not going to be required to do the urban village, which is in there, which is not what we're requiring anymore, because when we get rid of it and say commercial entitlement, 2 miles as the crow flies, we've gotten rid of that original concept. the people of Baum don't seem to want it anyway. So I think we really should totally think differently about this, and especially stop with the I feel like the requirement of water and wastewater is driving this whole thing, and we don't even have the water right now anyway. And you know, I really think that we need to rethink this in a substantive way. And I feel like that really just hasn't been done. And you know, the buffering's been talked about, the dark skies, that's great, but I would really like to see a you know, and the community could look and say, well, do we want maybe this, you know, big congregated open space greenbelt area or something like that, you know, as something, or do we, you know, and in terms of would we like to have 1 acre lots? As I understand it, I guess that once you go beyond 2 per acre, you must anywhere in the county do water and wastewater. That's accurate, correct?
Yes, it's a health department requirement that you have at least a 1/2 acre lot size for a septic tank.
Right. So we're saying, by saying that they have to do water and wastewater, we're driving 4 per acre or more by that requirement that we have. So I think we should remove that requirement on our part, so that if, you know, that if they have that in places, if that's what they present to us and they're going to pay for the connection and hookup, but we shouldn't be requiring it and driving that development form. I also think I'm still back on some kind of overlays, even on this, overlays for open land, overlays for, you know, I'm just really, I just feel like this has just nibbled at the edges, but not really, you know, the what I've gotten is what I hear that Baum wants, and what I think would be a good development form, a transitional form from the urban service area to the rural area, when there's lighter development and larger lots and open areas that are set aside under a conservation easement or an agricultural easement or something like that. But I think the first thing we really would need to do is just repeal any requirement we have for water and wastewater as a first step. And I don't see anyone else.
Commissioner Kemp, it's Commissioner White.
Yes.
So am I hearing you say that you're comfortable with well and septic usage in the RP2 area?
Absolutely.
To allow it to be a transitional area?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that you know, I've heard that from you as well. Yes, I think that would be important and significant.
Yeah. So I would just like to say to staff that I think Commissioner Kemp is onto something there. You know, if we could remove that, you know, high ticket, high priced water and sewer requirement, that might be a way to get the development community and the citizens together at the table and maybe promote an overall larger lotting pattern. You know, that could be the trade-off and what gets a deal made. So I'd like staff to go out not only to these public community meetings that are coming up, but, you know, maybe at the one-on-one negotiating table with some key stakeholders from the development community and some key citizen stakeholders to see if there's a deal to be made there.
Certainly, our team does have, as shown in the presentation, open houses coming up next week. The team also meets, I think, almost weekly with the Baum Civic Association. So we'd be happy to raise this idea. I think that is you know, it's a departure from how the RP2 has been set up historically, but there are a number of things that we also know historically about the RP2 have not worked. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, and thank you for recognizing me, Madam Chair.
Sure. Yeah, I'd really like to see a new conversation about that area. And I think that people in the community need to know that, you know, if somehow that's, they're just going to get small lot sizes if that's a, you know, and why the county doesn't have to make that requirement. It doesn't mean the developers can't do it in that area. They have a right to do it, but we shouldn't be requiring it. And if they do it, they need to pay for it. So it doesn't look, did you have your hand up, Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, a quick point to this conversation that's evolving is, of course, the other people to involve would be our water sewer utility people in this. I'll just say what's coming into my mind with the sewer is that we did, I've learned recently, have to have a moratorium on new development at one point hooking up to our sewer system in the early 80s because we ran out of capacity until a new treatment center could be built. So, I mean, I think we're now talking about drinking water being almost at that point, but we have been there with sewage. What happened then is there was this compromise with the developers, so they wouldn't have to actually stop developing until we had the capacity. They were allowed to put in package plants. And what happened after that, I believe, is the county ended up having to eventually, you know, take over those package plants, because what happens is they're not always done very well, and they don't always last, and then it's a really big mess, and then people are clamoring for us to take that over and rescue them, and so it ends up with county providing services after all, if we don't build in really strong restrictions and requirements on the front end. We're also learning a lot more about sewage impacts, septic tank impacts to wetlands and water systems, and we have, you know, rivers and wetlands and stuff out in this area. So we'll want to, you know, look at all of that very carefully. But, you know, I think we really need to be thinking more creatively. And I like the idea that, hey, we're brainstorming. We're trying to think of how best to do this. And while we're at it, another thought about water is requiring any lawn watering, for crying out loud, to be done with well water, shallow wells, whether or not they hook up to us or not, require lawn watering sprinkler systems to be set on shallow wells or groundwater or reclaimed water in some way. Of course, all of that at the developer's expense. So they're not hooking up because we're not able to. Where was I? Watering. Oh yeah, because you hook up 800 houses at a time to our water system to water sod daily, and that's become a big problem. So that could be especially valuable. And I just want to remind you that in this special RP2 WVR2 area, we are talking about an area outside the urban service area. So we are within our purview and within our responsibility to make sure that any further drain on our infrastructure is mitigated somehow. So lawn watering would be a place to do that. But I'll also point out that the point of the jobs requirement that seems to be like going away here was, or for I don't know why, it was to capture at least some trips. We were, you know, the county originally thought these little urban villages, rural villages could capture all their trips. I think we've grown to understand that that's not going to happen in this area of Hillsborough County, but it doesn't mean we throw out the baby with the bathwater. The WTL plus a study that we paid for did not recommend throwing it all out. And so I think this is an opportunity to rethink that, but not throw it all out and insist still, like Commissioner Kemp said, that we have a certain amount of commercial space, childcare facilities, salons, whatever it is that can capture some of these trips within the village. So, because if they're just going to be commuter bedroom communities, 1,000, 1,500 at a time outside the urban service area, that's a real problem on our road infrastructure, which we hear everybody is complaining about, including in this survey. So I don't think we should be throwing that out and trading that off for community benefits. I think this is an opportunity to reassess how we provide local commercial commercial facilities and services, but also add community benefits. I don't know why we're trading those. Thank you.
Commissioner Overman, I know you want to jump in here.
I do, and thank you. I appreciate the conversation, but I'm a little challenged, given that we just had a quarter of our affordable housing Sadowski Trust, swept to address wastewater systems in our state. And then we're talking about not requiring, to hook up to urban services because of the desire to not put pressure on our own infrastructure. If the result is we end up with larger lots that are required as a consequence of the land that's required for a septic, that makes sense. I do understand that. But things get waived on a regular basis, and I'm having a problem with that opportunity or that risk, that if it's not managed well, it may be a challenge. But I do truly appreciate the conversation that many of the meetings surrounded, and we've discussed over time, on how the community benefits are applied that results in fact, a community that's being built. Not just a bunch of houses with a couple of buildings that are for commercial purposes, because that has been the problem. We have a variety of land use restrictions on what can and cannot be built, in a commercial building or a commercial setting, that cause the community benefit list to be sometimes compromised. And when we get experts that come in and say, well, there's just not enough households to support a retail operation, it kills the opportunity for a real community that's built with diverse, different types of services that a community would typically need. As we mentioned, dry cleaners and park space and daycares and, the things that everyone needs if you are in fact building larger homes, which we heard in the survey, what people are looking for, more space. They're looking for more space. They're looking for better roads, and they have families. And so the idea of getting density that is in conflict with not only what's happening in our affordable housing budget, but also without a strong requirement of transit available to make those homes affordable. There's a lot of conflict in the planning that has had a desire to increase the numbers of properties available, because we need housing. We're dealing with growth, but we're not able to find a balance point with how to build collective communities. The other item that came up not too long ago was the concept of connectivity in communities to, other sources or main roads in order to facilitate allowing that community to move easily using sidewalks or bicycles and or cars or transit, if that were ever to be available or that option were to be available. And if we're starting to build 50-foot lots, that's not rural. It's not what we hear the survey is looking for. And unless it's within a rural township that has the elements that are being asked for in the community benefit. So I have some concerns about the density limitation is a function of whether or not we put septic in or not. But I also want to make sure that, as Commissioner Smith mentioned as well, is, the choice of having, 13 different community benefits, we're always going to get, for the most part, if there's not a real requirement of some community benefits in the process, rather than a selection of a few, we're going to get the least common denominator, or the argument to get it waived because there's not the retail to support it. There's not the demand to support it. There's not the situation to support it. So, because there's not enough households to support it. So we're in a bit of a complex situation. The other infrastructure that has not been discussed today that became readily obvious in the last year was that we provide power and we provide, as a requirement now, water and sewer, but we don't require internet. And what we've learned in this last year is that, there's a statement that you can't let your zip code determine your future. Well, if you don't have internet, that determines your future too. And we discovered that in the last year, that is a basic infrastructure requirement that should also happen in order when utilities are laid for a development that includes, more than a certain number of homes. And in this case, we're talking about, for 160 acres or more, is my understanding. So I am torn by the idea of moving away from connecting to services at this point, because I do believe that we do have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in the permitting process, either in place or within a reasonable time period that correlates with the number of homes that show up as a consequence of the permit approval. But I do think that there's some challenges here I like the community benefit list, but as Commissioner Smith mentioned, either ors aren't an option. If what we're doing is building a rural village, with the services that a village would provide, then it needs to be required as part of the developer's response to the density that they're going to be able to get by having the smaller lots. And I'll stop there.
I'd also say that we need to, I still think on a continued basis, and I'll say this about, and WTL was mentioned, on both of these, we have to figure out, and there's a whole different desire coming up with WV2, but in terms of really wanting a rural village or something like that, and densities and whatever, but or some densities in some places, but that we need some plan that somehow allows that to happen. And I'd really like, I'm getting back to overlays again, because I feel like this just has, I think there has to be something like that. And maybe that could be something the community could look at. in terms of what's open space or what it really looks like if they had this option or that. Would they like that better this way? If in terms of a big open area and, half-acre lots or something. But anyway, I do not see any further comments on this whole discussions. So I guess at this point we can move to the WVR2.
Yes, we sure can. Thank you all for all of that feedback. It certainly is beneficial for us to get that in advance of the open houses, and we can have that dialogue with the community next week. So with that, we'll move to the Waimama Village Residential 2 and Waimama Community Plan update, which will be presented by Taryn Sabia.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So thank you for having us this afternoon for the workshop. And in looking at Waimama, we had 4 key components that are part of the community plan update for Waimama Village. It includes the livable communities element and the future land use element for the comprehensive plan, the downtown overlay, which has the land development code as part of that overlay, the WVR2 policy update, which also is part of the land development code, and the downtown strategic action plan. So just wanting to be able to give you a sense of the outreach that we have done this spring since January. And we were really excited and enthusiastic to get back out into the community. It was certainly worthwhile. We held in person in the community workshops. We've done 4 so far. We have a 5th one upcoming, which is our open house. All of these workshops included 2 to 3 session presentations followed by an engagement activity and conversations with community members. We had anywhere from 30 to about 100 people attend each one of these. These were all also live streamed, so people could watch online if they weren't comfortable coming in person. They were all also recorded and put up online as well, so people could watch them afterwards. And sessions were done in English and in Spanish. So we've really put a lot into that outreach in terms of being able to connect with the community and to get feedback. We've worked with community organizations and partners. Waimama Now has really been a tremendous help in terms of reaching out to the community, inviting community members to come out, providing food trucks for a number of those events, which we do think was something that was the real show of hospitality that is in Waimama. In addition to this, there's been additional meetings as well as office hours that have been held in the community. So those office hours, and as we look through the timeline here, have really taken shape and been available to community members to come out and have conversations with Planning Commission staff, to ask questions and to have any additional questions that they may have had from workshops answered. You can see here, these are some of the activities that we have had out for folks during our workshops and ways for them to provide us with feedback. So we've used everything from visual preference surveys to get an understanding of the overall character that they're looking for in their downtown to see if we're on the right track with our overlay and design standards, to different neighborhood elements that they're looking for within new neighborhoods, as well as visual preference overall for site planning activities. Commissioner Kemp mentioned wanting to see some of those, and in fact, we have done a bit of testing of the code and wanted to bring that to the community. And just to remind everyone a little bit of how we approach the process in general, and I've always used the similar slides, and you're probably seeing repeats, but wanting to bring everyone back to some of the original outreach in terms of understanding the overall community-wide approach that we've taken. So knowing that mobility, forming character, environment, and open space, and cultural capital and community have been essential planning elements throughout the process. They are reflected in the policy as well as the overall community plan and strategic action plan for Waimama's downtown, as well as the WVR2. And I'm going to take you through some of the priorities that we have gotten from the community over the past several months now. And we're going to start with the livable communities element goals. So these goals are really important, and they create and set the foundation for what we have built into the policy, as well as community benefit options, which I'll go into in just a little bit. So these goals were initially prioritized in the LCE, the Livable Communities element from the original Waimama Community Plan in 2007. So we wanted to revisit those, and we did early on in the process, and then we've brought them back out to the community during this outreach and engagement session and asked them to prioritize these. So they've been prioritized, they've been updated a bit, and you see that infrastructure has really risen to the top of the conversation. It's risen to the top of the goals for the community in Waimama, followed by education, Waimama's downtown plan and development, business and economic development, affordable housing and neighborhoods, the multimodal transportation and connectivity, parks, recreation and conservation, health, wellness, and safety, and Waimama Village Residential 2, the WVR2. And just to give you an example of what the goals look like, they have a number of different bullet points or elements that fit in underneath them. So under infrastructure and public realm is to enhance Waimama's public realm and improve its infrastructure. Right up at the top was expanding sewer and water for commercial development in downtown Waimama, create an infrastructure prioritization plan for the Waimama's downtown, and expansion of internet access through infrastructure. So these are priorities based on communities' responses. We also brought out the downtown and the downtown overlay. So the downtown overlay was something that was requested in the original community plan. And again, we wanted to make sure that we were addressing the goals and that urban design framework as we looked at the Waimama downtown. And we asked the community again to prioritize different elements that you see in the land development code overlay for downtown. So right at the top is the Florida-friendly landscaping and wanting to see green infrastructure design on main thoroughfares, right? So picking up on that rural landscape and those things that are important to the identity of the community. Constructing sidewalks in existing neighborhoods with priority given to those neighborhoods that are closest to schools. And this goes back to education being at the top, and also connectivity where the community wants children to be able to walk and bike to school safely. Implementing the bicycle network in the Waimama Greenway Trail. This was something that the community sees as a potential main transportation mode. They look at their community as a place that they can and should be able to get around via walking and biking, and having the majority of their daily needs met within their own community. So applicability, so this is something that is staying the same in terms of commercial buildings. This really has to do with when is the overlay triggered. So it has to do with a percentage of building footprint changes. So looking at 25 to 50% of overall square footage would trigger a portion of the overlay, including landscaping and signage requirements. If you're going to go beyond 50% of existing legally permitted square footage within the parcel, you're going to trigger more of the overlay. So landscaping, screening, signage, and the building design requirements. And then if it is new structures that are constructed on vacant parcels, or where a primary structure is replaced, then it would be the full overlay. So this is how we're transitioning in that applicability. It's a little different for the residential single family components. We wanted to make sure there was clarification, responding to a community concern, and making sure that in terms of replacing homes due to catastrophic events, that the community would be able to do that, and that the overlay would only be voluntary, or if they're choosing to just rebuild their home in its footprint, then the overlay would be voluntary. So looking at compatibility, and this is something that's come up in conversation, so I anticipate we may hear more, but looking at the compatibility and rural growth, policy in terms of residential uses adjacent to residential uses shall demonstrate compatibility through the creation of a similar lot pattern, enhanced screening, buffering, or other means. So this is a policy component that will be included within the FLU. And then for rural growth, we are continuing to look at alternative metrics on timing and the prematurity of growth within the rural service area. So that takes us into looking at the Waimama Village Residential 2, the WVR2, which is the shaded area on the map, and the discussion of community benefits. So we've talked a bit about community benefits. New development shall include community benefits requirements to provide services to residents, which can be supported on-site or off-site. Some of the key pieces for Waimama right now within our policy drafts, we have 11 different benefits, and depending on the size of the development, the projects would be required, the developers would be required to select anywhere from 1 to 4 of those that they would be responsible to construct. And so we can go through a list if you'd like to after the presentation. We have 2 that are highlighted here in terms of looking at the school component and being able to include the infrastructure for schools as a benefit option. And then for downtown commercial development can be constructed in the downtown Main Street core or downtown east. And the requirement is for the 42 square feet per household for the required neighborhood commercial component. And so our math, 100 households would equal 4,200 square feet, just to give you a sense of the type of commercial square footage. Again, in that Main Street core, we're looking at that smaller scale commercial for local businesses, shops, and things that you would see on a typical small scale commercial Main Street. Those numbers that we are using did come out of the WTL&A report, and so that's where those have been pulled from. This is an example of the community priorities as it relates to neighborhood elements. We talked a little bit about those activities, and asking the community to help prioritize things for us. So this was really showing schools as being really important to the community. The community has expressed that schools in the area are overcrowded, the need for more schools. The community has also talked about its desire to have shared use agreements for the different school resources that could be open to the community, whether it's recreation fields, libraries, computer labs. And they think that this may be a way to help bridge some of the gaps the community feels it has currently. The mix of housing types is also important to the community. The mix of housing types appears in 2 areas within the Land Development Code. The first is that there is a required mix of housing types within the WVR2 that has to be met. And then there are additional housing types where you can go above and beyond what is required as a community benefit. So there are 4 different types required. And if you do 6 different types or more, that could be your community benefit option. The farming co-op that we had on here as a community support use is something the community likes. Community support uses are something the community feels would be a benefit to them, whether it's early childhood care centers or assisted living as facilities as well. So that's what's under those support uses. Neighborhood parks, conservations, community gardens, recreation fields, the agri-hood and low impact development. And so, we are seeing that these elements that we have built into the policies, the community is telling us that they are still a priority. One of the other priorities that that we have heard from the communities is about affordable housing. This has been an ongoing conversation. I know we've talked about it in the past, and we have talked to the community more about affordable housing. The stacking of TDR, the transfer of development rights, and the affordable housing density bonus that currently exists within the county in the urban service area will be still allowed in the downtown based on this policy draft. And so we asked the community in terms of, having an understanding, again, of the different area median incomes of the countywide versus that area median income in the Waimama area, and their desire to see affordable housing. We asked them to prioritize where they would like to see affordable housing. So you can see on the map that they have stickered all over both the urban service area here with the downtown and then the downtown residential, as well as throughout the shaded area, which is the WVR2. So some of the comments that we received from the community was to incentivize affordable housing in the WVR2 within the 2 dwelling units per gross acre maximum. So finding an incentive that works without maybe a density bonus, supporting affordable housing, including single family home ownership, was something that they also talked about. There is concern about concentrating all of the affordable housing in the downtown with more affluent suburbs surrounding it. Looking that there is some desire to incentivize affordable housing in Waimama throughout both the urban service area and the rural service area. So we told the community we would bring the conversation to the board and see where we are with affordable housing. And in terms of what's next, we will be holding the open house where we're putting all of these pieces together and coming back to the community. It'll be at the Bethel Farm Workers Ministry, June the 26th, which is a Saturday. And the majority of our workshops have been on Saturdays. And again, we still have our website where all of the different recordings, activities, and other policy documents are available to the community. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, you recognized.
Thank you. I have some questions about the affordable housing. Let's all keep in mind that nothing we do here prevents a developer from building affordable housing in the rural area, in the RP2 area, in the WVR2 area. That is, nothing we do is prohibiting that. It's allowed now. So that's still available. And I hope it's not being conveyed to the community that we are, preventing that. It's just that we're not, so far, I haven't been inclined, and I think the board consensus has been that we're not inclined to add density bonuses and incentivize affordable housing in areas, whereas Commissioner Overman said again today, it would require everybody to own their own car, particularly as we water down any requirements for jobs in the area. And, so everybody's going to have to do that long commute to Tampa. Some other questions I have is, having been in a lot of these kinds of stakeholder meetings myself, you know, when I see there's a concern raised about concentrating all the affordable housing in the downtown with more affluent suburbs around it, I can't help but wonder who's raising that concern. Is that one of the things that, you know, in these discussions with certain profit-making interests, they're fighting very hard with their attorneys, several attorneys in that room, trying to raise the hypothetical what if, careful about those unintended consequences sorts of scenarios. And this sounds to me like one of those. I mean, is it even realistic to worry that we're going to have affordable housing, you know, really thick all the way up to the urban service area line, and then affluent suburbs around it, when what we're talking about is, you know, the kind of development that we've been seeing is not necessarily, I mean, I think it's a fine transition. In fact, some of it is we are already considering affordable housing in the rest of the county at the price point that they're building.
If I can respond to that, the community really has, this is not a comment that came from the large landowners or the attorneys. This is community members who are currently living in Waimama who are concerned about being priced out or not being able to stay in Waimama. So they're looking to see more housing that is affordable, either through mix of housing types or affordability programs that would be available for those who are currently living there, and expand throughout the community to keep the affordability.
Thank you. And, you know, the other thing is when people think about affordable housing, you know, they want to, as Commissioner Kemp alluded to earlier, they want to be able to have it all. They want to afford a house in a development where they can bike to work downtown and in a rural neighborhood, you know. But in order to have affordable housing, you know, you're talking about different kinds of things. If it's truly affordable to the price point of Waimama. So I think at the end of the day, we do have a responsibility to make sure that we're not driving people's hopes up about what we can actually, what's realistic, what will really happen after these policies get put in place. Thank you.
Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. And I was going to pipe in on that issue to some degree, but I think the concerns of the community is, you know, that it lives there, given the median income for 100% of AMI at $49,000 is a valid fear, and that's it. That's for Waimama, and 80% at 39. Affordable housing typically is designed to meet the 80% of AMI, and we've capped out our contribution towards the affordable housing area at the 100%. But the challenge we have is that basically the median sales price for a single family home in Florida, and Hillsborough is not too different than anywhere else, now stands at, as of March, because I was looking through the economic reports recently, at $314,900. I don't know how many people in Waimama can afford that, but I know when I was first getting started buying my first home, that was outside of a price range that I could do. And then when we're looking at condominiums or townhomes, they're they're selling at the $233,000 level. Well, at both of those price points, the AMI in this area isn't going to be able to make those purchases. And then secondarily, the 314 that I described for a single family, it exceeds the maximum price point for a first-time home buyer program. So with that, I mean, unless everything in that area is classified as affordable housing, or we figure out a way to have developers build homes in a price point that can be for the people who live there, what will happen is people who have more income than this will go there because the homes are in a price point that is manageable. And the people who live there will be clustered in, in apartments or townhomes, or apartments basically, because that's really, honestly, given the rents, that's what they will only be able to afford. So it is problematic. But at the end of the day, the average median income in that area is relatively low, and affordable housing, truly affordable housing, not at the average that we're seeing right now in this state, it's going to be necessary if we're not going to displace the people who live in Waimama. And I think that's what I'm hearing them say. Their fear is maybe more so than, we don't want to cluster a bunch of people with low income in the same place, because that's also a scary thing, and which shouldn't be the case, but it is the reality of our biases, and that is pervasive in our economy. But I do believe it is important that we, in the process of developing a strategy for this particular community, that we are able to deal with what is the housing design, what is the community design that can support the development of affordable housing, so there isn't displacement within this community. And that's why, the overlay of a business job requirement, becomes important, because without the job right there in the community, and without the sidewalk or the bike lane or the, decent walkable street to cross in the vicinity, it becomes unaffordable, because they are required to have 2 vehicles so that they could go to a different place to shop, go to the doctor's, or go to work. And I know that's what the community has been wrestling with, but the reality is it's not going to be easy. And the density bonus that's available within within the affordable housing metric cannot be the only factor. It can't. Because this community, does need more than just density to get what get what they're looking for, is my understanding. So I'll stop there. There's been a lot of good work here, and I see it for a rural community that is developing its own sort of urbanized style, rural town environment, and I think they're doing a great job. But that connectivity that they're looking for in the design, they previously had it because of the job connectivity, but the reality is it has to be a connected grid or a connected community structure that allows for the diversity and the traveling between where they live and where they actually have an opportunity to work. And so I like seeing what I'm seeing, but there are some huge challenges that we have in this area. And like I said, it needs to be that if there are opportunities for affordable housing, if there is a way that the people who live there get first come, first serve, so that they don't get displaced. I don't know how to do that, but I think it's going to be something that needs to be paid attention to in order to avoid the displacement that will occur if we're building, at a price point that is very attractive compared to the rest of the county. And I'll stop there.
I don't see any other hands up. I have, as I've expressed before, I'm very, very, very concerned about what is going on in Waimama with this plan. the first of all, again, we're looking at August 5th here, but one of the things I'm concerned about is how this vision gets translated into policy and words that are adhere to create that. I've not seen that we have been successful with doing that in the past. One thing that was not mentioned here, I believe, is that the recommendation is to not have the jobs requirement anymore as part of this going forward. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. We at this time in the draft are removing the jobs requirement and putting the community benefit options in as the tool to help us achieve the business growth and employment growth, and also looking at the community benefit options as something that can help improve infrastructure to lead to that commercial development, which right now is lagging behind due to the lack of infrastructure that's in downtown.
Right now, what I see with BOM and Mama that concerns me is that we are going to be simply opening them up. And I like the downtown concept, and I'm very supportive of that. I wonder how it's going to happen. It looks like in terms of what our purported policy that we have, and we don't have it written down, so we can't review it yet. That's extraordinarily important to me, how this is translated into words on paper as policy. And we don't ever see that. We just see these visions, and then the words don't necessarily support that. We just prevailed in an extremely important court decision in terms of our ability to look at the wisdom of timing, the presence of infrastructure in how we make decisions on development. I'm very concerned that timing language is disappearing in both BOM and Waimama. In Waimama, the jobs requirement is what it was, a measurement of timing. So right now we have one outside the urban service area, 1 unit per 5 acres. If they want to do more, they have to do a rural village. BOM is pretty clear they don't want a rural village, but I think they would probably want a little bit of commercial development and access to that. Waimama, we hear the other thing. So I like what it is, the rural village that is there in the urban service area of BOM. I'm concerned that we are, even when WTL recommended that we not totally get rid of the jobs requirement, that somehow we seem to be getting rid of that, because that's a timing measure for us in terms of the rural village improving development. I'm afraid what we're moving into here is just through the language we use, through getting rid of the timing elements in our code, in our constitution of our comprehensive plan that's being rewritten for these areas right now. I'm concerned that we will lose our ability to regulate or to look at the wisdom of timing and infrastructure and all of those, and say that this development is not ready. I almost want, and I don't want to get rid of less than 160 acres. I almost want us to, in Waimama, to create 160 acre overlays that, if we're going to do another place, that we do that overlay, that it would have to be built just that way, maybe transfer the development rights into it from outside, leave the rest of the area, agriculture, with conservation easements. I'm totally uncomfortable with getting rid of the jobs requirement in whole. I feel like, that we are going to negate the very strong court decision we just had if we tamper with this language for either of these places in an unwise way. And I'm not, I'm just not convinced that we're there at all. I'm just not. Whereas the downtown, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay. I know the schools benefit was talked about before. I didn't see it up here now. And that really drove me. I heard our schools are overcrowded here. I'd like to know exactly which ones. Again, I'll say what I said at the last time. I think the sentiment of the board has been to pull out these whole, schools being developed or included as a community benefit, or even part of what's put forward to us. And I think the school board was on the same place, because what we've gotten is low quality, inappropriate places to build schools that wouldn't be the choices that were made. With the impact fees that we had now, I heard we had to settle for that because we didn't have any money. We apparently are hopefully getting some resources by the increased impact fees for schools. And so that we don't have to do that, that we can independently decide where schools should be. I'd like some further analysis of that. I think if you give people, it's kind of like the questionnaire at the beginning. Pick one thing, limit yourself to one choice, breathing, drinking water, or eating, but you can only choose one. I kind of feel like if you give people dots and say, where do you want affordable housing? And people are desperate for affordable housing, they're going to dot all over the place. But that doesn't, again, speak to the public policy, as Commissioner Smith pointed out. They can have affordable housing anywhere that it could be built, but we shouldn't be incentivizing that through densities, in those areas. And there's nothing, but I feel like that is, I feel like people have believe that that's some kind of false choice. I'm also concerned, to some extent. I'd like some analysis of it. I want to have housing that's affordable for people in Waimama, and that matches the need or the area medium income there. The only problem is that if you make it so it never can pencil out in a real way, you won't get anything that's suitable. So I want to make sure that these things are real. I really want them to be real. And I don't feel like we're quite there yet. And I want to see the policy language that matches, that makes it real and doable. It's not, it seems like to me, we have to get other county departments involved in this, because once you come up with this nice plan that maybe doesn't happen, then the county's left with it. The developers are gone. It's not the form that's affordable or good for the future. And I really feel like, in some ways, economic development, affordable housing. I've already talked in some ways with some others about, the promise or the belief that people had that they could have a library, and see if maybe we can start to move on that. But that's going to, a lot of this stuff is not developer stuff, developer responsibilities as much as it is something that the county would do. I am extremely worried that where we're moving now not only negates the lawsuit and the timing elements, but just opens this up in reality by by the language that I don't have yet to just become another single family, sprawl development. Again, I'll say that I want to look at Waimama too. Obviously, places that have the higher development pattern, the clusters, need to have sewer and wastewater. They wouldn't be allowed to be there under county policy. Obviously, that should be paid for by the developers. But, barring that, I just wonder if it could be driving as well. Some of the more sparse, what I would hope would be more sparse surrounding development with agriculture or something like that. I mean, I really want to understand this element of how this all plays out together in a good way. And I'm talking about all the elements. And I just again feel like we just haven't reached there. While the downtown is good, I really wouldn't want to give up the jobs requirement, at least some jobs requirement at this time. That is a timing element we have, but I also think we need the timing language to stay for both Baum and Waimama. And I really want all that looked at carefully and closely. When in the 1980s, again, this was 1980s, early 1990s, what they said is what this all has been said a lot of times, but outside the urban service area, 1 development unit per 5 acres. In order not to have that, in order to have something else, they need to create a 160-acre urban village. I've yet to see the plan that comes to me and says, here's the 160-acre urban village that you asked for. We have 160 acres here. Here's the urban village. That's never what they do. It's just what they're used to doing, which is 160 acres. And here they want densely developed single family housing outside the urban area, service area, from anything I can see. That doesn't change at all. And, I think it was wise to have, if we have 1 rural village outside in the rural service area, if we have 1, and then we can have farmland all around that's preserved, and we have 1, rural village that's as prescribed, that fits that form. And I've seen it is happening in other places. But, I think it would take a developer that could do that, or a mix of developers that would work together to do that, and not kind of what we have now. That's why I say, I don't know, maybe 160-acre overlay of what we could all agree on, a few variations of that. And okay, you've got it. And then the rest of the land can be this or that, or maybe it takes 2 of them in this area. I don't know. But I'm again really interested in opening up the conversation. I know it's late in the story, so we may only pass, I don't know, or maybe people would be willing to pass, commissioners would be willing to pass this. I would not be willing to do, I really think the conversation still has to go on with minimal changes that could be made by August 5th. I don't know. And then, in the future, keep this going and maybe get in some other types of economic development expertise. I understand that that's not quite where this is, but that's kind of the work WTL, and I know several other groups do. And I think maybe that has to, there has to be some kind of comprehensive look at that, because I understand why that's not happening, but I think it does need to happen.
Well, if I could just respond to a couple of things, because I know we're getting late in the time today. I wanted to just make sure the commissioners knew that we have had a great partnership with a number of county departments being involved in our project management team both of these projects, from public utilities, from parks and the ELAP folks, economic development services. I'm sure I'm missing a number of them, but they have been fantastic in helping us identify what is feasible. And I think, to your point there at the end, what fits in the comprehensive plan and in the land development code, because those are the tools that we're focused on right now. And there may be other tools that are outside of those documents that also need to be employed to arrive at some of the things that the community wants to achieve. It may not be that the comprehensive plan is the right thing to achieve all of the economic development goals, for example, that they have, or to help them create a small business incubator or something. That may be something that is outside of the comprehensive plan. It doesn't preclude it from happening. It just may not be that the comprehensive plan is the right tool to achieve it. As it relates to the issue of timing, that is something that we have been spending quite a bit of time talking with the county attorney's office. We have also been utilizing our outside counsel, who we have had employed on some of the litigation matters related to, for example, the jobs interpretation, as it's known, or jobs requirement as it's known, to help us identify the best measures in terms of timing, because this is outside the urban service area. You're 100% correct. This is not the same as the development that's in the urban service area. This is special. It's also not like the rest of the rural area either. You all have articulated that very well, but there are constraints from state law on what aspects of timing we can measure when in the development process. And so that's something they are helping us with. That's something, it's very much our hope that we're able to bring back something that is strengthened in that regard, so that you all have some clear measures to be able to evaluate as different developments move forward. The last thing that I wanted to mention as it relates to the rural village, the decision was made back when the Waimama Community Plan was originally adopted in the mid-2000s to focus the village on the Waimama downtown. So that is something that we have not heard, and we continue to hear the community want to do that. They want to focus the commercial in the village in the downtown. And I think some of the tools like the downtown overlay that Taryn has created are very helpful in making sure that as that happens, that it meets the community's expectations. But as we talk about the village, there's definitely a difference between how that is viewed in the RP2 and how it is viewed in the Waimama. And I wouldn't want to upset that apple cart at this point. That I think the community is very invested on their village being the Waimama downtown. So,
oh, I'm not suggesting another one. I'm just, and I love that design, and I think that's exactly where it should be. I'm just suggesting that if there are more entitlements that are insisted upon, that it be then directed in that way, not that not that the other parts just get to be a sprawl. And that anything that's built in the WVR, if it's, if there's more entitlements than are there, I'm not suggesting to move it or anything at all.
understood.
To be clear.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
So I don't think anybody else looks like, sorry to have taken so much time. I find this extraordinarily important. It looks like no one else has their hands up. I don't hear anybody. So I think we can adjourn, and thank you very much. I know y'all have done a lot of work. It's a big, big job.
Well, thank you for the time and the feedback. It's extremely valuable at this point in the process that we hear this from you all. We will be circulating the updated drafts to you all in the next couple of weeks, well in advance of the August 5th, so that there is lots of opportunity for you all to digest that. Be happy to meet with you all one-on-one to continue these discussions. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.